Hi friends, welcome back to Mana Chandamama Kathalu. Samarsen and his men are still on the journey to find their ships. If you have not watched the first 5 parts of the comet, please go ahead and do that right now. The links for all of them are in the description. Let's go for a quick recap to see what exactly happened. Samarsen and his men who were lost in the Isle of Sorcery have met the two sorcerers, One Eye and the Four Eye. They saw the fierce battle between them and their monsters. They gave up all hope finding the wealth on the isle, and even their attempts to reach their ships had many obstacles in them. The last one was an erupting volcano. Let's see what happens in the part 6 of the comet. Bright sparks shot into the sky from the mouth of the volcano. Samarsen just thought of the comet that they did not care about when they started on the adventure. The comet must have cursed us, he thought. As ill luck would have it, the volcano has erupted exactly on their way to their ships. So the direction of the east where their ships are is now closed. So they had to turn back, and all his men, frightened completely to the core, just followed their commander. Their ships were in the east and they were going to the west, but they could not help it. The earth was still shivering on the account of the eruption, while the entire sky was filled with smoke. Samarsen felt that very soon there might be an earthquake. This is not only the Isle of Sorcery, but also the Isle of Volcanoes, I believe, he thought. His mind was full of fear now for himself as well as for his men. Samarsen and his men were not anxious to search for a path. They just walked into the trees and bushes. What they wanted was to go away as far as possible from the angry volcano. But these were not the only creatures who were trying to get away from the volcano. Lava was flowing down on all sides of the volcano, and various bees left their lairs and ran about in panic. This too was a cause of alarm to Samarsen and his men. Slowly the lava was filling depressions and overflowing them. Several streamlets of liquid fires were coming together and forming big rivulets. Unless Samarsen took his men to a higher region, they ran the risk of dying a horrible death in the lava. Samarsen marched ahead of his men, inspiring them as usual. After going some distance, he looked ahead and stopped suddenly. At first he could not believe his eyes, but what he saw did not disappear like magic. So it's not a vision. It's more clear when he stepped forward. It was the sight of a man, a human being, and it surprised Samarsen so much. A human being on the Isle of Sorcery. Oh my God! All hail Mother Kundalini. This man was hanging upside down from a tree, and Samarsen could not make out if he is dead or alive. His feet were securely tied together with the help of some creepers. From his appearance, Samarsen guessed he must be a tribesman. The men too kept gazing at the tribesman hanging on the tree, a human being amidst prehistoric animals, sorcerers, and wilderness of the isle. That was a strange sight. Who could have punished this poor fellow in such a heartless fashion? Samarsen asked himself. And then he said aloud, "At any rate, one thing is clear. There are human beings on this isle, even if there are only tribal people. If only I could find out where these people live, it would be of immense use for us in the future." The men did not like the line. They were more anxious to reach their ships and go back home. Why bother about these tribesmen? The best thing was to get out of here quick. Samarsen saw that his men were not saying anything, and he could understand their mind. As a matter of fact, he was just anxious as they were to get away from this cursed place. But how? Samarsen took a few more steps and came to the man hanging head down. He examined him and found that there were no wounds on the body. So his enemies might have did this to him, and he must have died of prolonged thirst and hunger. All the men were sorry for the fellow, and Samarsen alone was engaged with other thoughts. There must be something behind this. How was he to find it out? There could not be any doubt that some part of the island was habitable for men. But where was it? The more Samarsen asked himself such questions, the more his curiosity rose. Samarsen's eyes fell upon an object that was lying some distance away on the ground. He went there and picked it up. It was a broken water flask, a hollowed gourd with a piece of string tied around its narrow mouth. The bottle was broken by somebody when they threw it away. "Blessed be Mother Kundalini," said Samarsen. He lifted his face up to the sky and offered a short prayer. The men could not understand what their commander was doing. From the surprised look on their faces, Samarsen guessed their mind and said, "We have nothing to fear. I am sure we are very near to habitations of human beings. Besides, this water flask is the kind of thing that human beings use. If we keep our eyes open, it should not be difficult to find our way to these men. At once, the men began to search for footprints. In a short time, their efforts were rewarded with success. They came upon a meadow which was covered with footmarks indicating that there was a huge crowd that passed this way, and that was a crowd of human beings. The men were very enthusiastic now. Their minds were free from all doubts and they started to follow the tracks. In about half an hour, they reached the summit. Looking all around, they could see that the volcano was still under eruption mode and the animals were frightened and running all around, and wild cries filled the entire atmosphere. Also, a part of the forest was set on fire by the flowing lava. Then they started again, still following the tracks and not knowing where they led them. They were still troubled by the fear of wild animals and the sorcerers. They kept their swords and bows in readiness, but inwardly they were praying to Mother Kundalini. Presently they came to a torrent which jumped from one level to another level like a flock of frisking sheep. There were plenty of stones standing in the stream and the water murmured to them. Samarsen and his men now had to cross a river. It was not an easy thing. Even if they did cross the river, it might lead to nothing if they failed to pick up the tracks again. On the other hand, they were now farther from their ships than ever, and turning back was equally meaningless. At this point, one of the men ventured to say, "It's not easy to cross the river, Commander." "No, but we shall do it all the same," Samarsen said, coming to a decision. If only they had a rope long enough, they could cross the stream. Since there was no rope available, Samarsen asked his men to cut down the plenty thick creepers and hanging roots of the trees. This was soon done, and a sturdy rope was ready. One end of the rope was tied to a big tree on the bank, and the men took hold of the rope and started to cross the stream by jumping from one rock to another rock, and holding on to the rope so that they were not washed away by the swift waters. Soon, they were on the other side. Samarsen searched for the tracks carefully and found them again. He could see them going into the thick forest, not very far. They moved forward along the tracks with Samarsen in the lead. Amidst the closely growing trees, there was a footpath of tribesmen who left the tracks went along this footpath. When Samarsen and his men were well into the forest, they heard a fearful noise of a herd of elephants trumpeting and stampeding. There were also the noise of trees being smashed. Evidently, the elephants were very near to Samarsen, and he chose a big tree and climbed it as fast as he could, and all of his men did likewise. It was a good thing that they did so, for in a few moments, the wild elephants appeared running in fear of the jungle fires, pushing down and destroying everything that stood in their way. Had Samarsen hesitated a few moments, all of them would have been crushed to death. Samarsen looked down from the tree and saw the destruction caused by these giants. The men were so shaken that they did not dare to come down from the tree long after the elephants disappeared. At last they came down. Their nerves were shattered and the slightest noise frightened them. But soon they forgot the past because they were now faced with a new problem. In their stampede, the elephants have destroyed all the trace of tracks as well as the footpath. What were they to do now? Let's see what Samarsen and his men had to do. And were they able to find the human beings or their ships or anything for that matter on the Isle of Sorcery? See you next Saturday in the part 7 of the Comet. Thank you for watching this. Please go ahead and like this video, share it with all your friends and do subscribe to my channel, Mana Chandamama Kathalu. Thank you.